Hey guys, it's Hart going to be breaking down this Monday Night Football slate here on DraftKings. We have a two-game slate. It is not the usual showdown slate. So we have the Jets versus the Dolphins, and then we have the Bengals versus the Broncos. So super pumped about that. We don't have to deal with the showdown BS, but going to be breaking down the slates, going through some value plays, some core plays, who we can look to get difference, the team totals, all that good stuff. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and let's get right into this breakdown. So taking a quick look at the spread and team totals right now, 3-point spread on the Jets and Dolphins game, favorite to the Dolphins, 44.5 game total. And then for kind of the team totals, right now they have Miami at about 23.5 points and the Jets at 20.5 points. And then for the Bengals and Broncos, 7.5 point spread. So slight blowout risk there in that game. Favored for the Broncos, and then 44.5 game total there, where the Broncos are at about 26.5 point team total, and the Bengals are about 16.5. So as you can see, the Bengals are kind of coming in at the lowest team total right now across this two-game slate. So take that in mind when you're building your lineups. So starting off the slate breakdown, I think it's a very unique slate, something that we don't usually get, where everyone is priced relatively cheap on this two-game slate. Like, you can get to pretty much all the top, most expensive guys in the slate and not have to get to any value, which is something that we rarely see on a slate, let alone a two-game slate. Like, you're left with 2,800 left over. Obviously, you're forced to get to some tight ends, but still, like, you're getting a tight end one there for the Jets. So it's one of those slates where you don't really have to get too crazy in terms of like contrarian, value plays, having to take a dart throw on some random guys, just because everyone is priced very, very cheap and very, very soft. So I think it'll make for a very interesting and unique slate where you can get to most of the top guys and you feel good about it, not have to jam in a bad guy. I think obviously the biggest question mark is going to be that tight end room. And if you want to get super, super weird and contrarian, double tight end, maybe that's what takes it down tonight, with paying up for all the top guys for all the wide receiver, running back, and quarterback positions. And maybe double tight end in the flex is going to be what takes it down. But we'll see. We'll get into that there in a second. But in terms of quarterback plays, Bo Nix makes for the safest and probably the best play, just because 26.5 game total, the highest team total on the slate for these teams. $6,000. I mean, he has the passing upside for multiple touchdowns, as well as 300 plus yards, as well as he's ran from the ball for 8 attempts in the past 2 out of 3 games there. Good rushing floor, good rushing ceiling. Will run it in the end zone. So Bo Nix looks like a fantastic play there. Slightly prefer him to Justin Fields, but I think Justin Fields makes sense to play as well. I mean, he's one of those guys, as you can see, we'll go for 30, he'll go for 5. You really just kind of aim for that ceiling game there in terms of rushing the ball. They're a rush first team, so expect them to come back fully healthy from this concussion and run the ball a ton. So right now, those are the two highest owned quarterbacks on the slate. It makes sense why. Like, Justin Fields going against that Miami defense looks fantastic there in terms of rushing upside. And then Bo Nix going against the the Bengals, makes sense. If you want to get a contrarian, I'd rather go to Tua over Jake Browning. Just because Tua's just a better quarterback, even though he's been terrible, hasn't been the best. He's been a question mark the past few seasons, but still, 5,200. You can pair him with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, and they're going against the Jets defense, who's been allowing a ton of points. Jake Browning at Denver, going against the Denver defense, don't love it. He's just more so that very, very contrarian play if you do want to get to him. Running backs, I think it just makes sense. Put in Devon Achane. Don't think about it. Throw him in there. In terms of like running back ownership, Devon Achane obviously is going to be the highest owned, looks the best. And then it's going to be, Breece Hall, and then J.K. Dobbins, and then Chase Brown in terms of those top 4 running backs. I think that makes sense. I think that's the route I would go. I think arguably Breece Hall is the best running back on the slate. Take it for what you want. Maybe slightly less than Devon Achane. Just because that offense is a little bit suspect, but still, I expect them to get back to that week 1 where they rush Breece Hall for 15 to 20 attempts. They throw the ball to him multiple times out of the backfield once again. Going against the Dolphins, just a terrible, terrible defense. Really, really like Breece Hall here for tonight, pairing him with Devon Achane. And if you do go with Justin Fields instead of Bo Nix, I think it still makes sense to play Breece Hall alongside of him, even though Justin Fields will kind of eat up and vulture some of those goal line rushing attempts. But yeah, in terms of other running backs, really like J.K. Dobbins. He's got really strong odds to get a touchdown tonight. Once again, really, really consistent workload. Clear running back 1 as of right now for this team. And he's seen a couple of attempts out of the backfield in terms of catching upside. So those three look really, really strong. It's just, what to do with Chase Brown. Going against a really tough defense in Denver. The offensive line for the Bengals has been terrible. Chase Brown's been super, super efficient. Like, everything is pointing to him just being in a terrible spot. Thus why the ownership is flowing to all the other guys who are just way better plays. But 2-game slate, you never want to rule anyone out, and he's getting the volume. So he could be one of those key plays where you're not even really getting that different in terms of like going to him. It's just, you're just really hoping for this Bengals team to click enough where he goes for 10, 15 fancy points and he does really well compared to like the other guys. So there's that option. I don't think there's a need to get to him, but still, I mean, it's a 2-game slate. You never want to rule or X out anyone, especially on like owning a 2-game slate, just because the volume is there for him, even though the team has been terrible. In terms of running backs, it's one of those slates, like, you don't have to pay down. Like, you don't have to get to these secondary running back options. They don't feel great. Like, Braylon Allen's probably the... I just don't think he's going to be that running back too. Like, as we've seen, his workload's really gone down, not heavily involved, so I don't think there's a need to get to him. RJ Harvey, the same thing. Like, unless you expect there to be a blowout, then I'd say go to RJ Harvey, who they can get involved. Just more so, just get him involved, getting some attempts, let him learn a little bit more, get that experience. Like, that could be a dart throw play. But if you're going to land on someone, I'd say it's going to be Ollie Gordon. Got the first rushing touchdown for the Dolphins there in week 3. He's going to be the goal line back, that red zone back, just because he has more size than Achane. So one of those guys who does have some speed, the ability to break off some long plays there. He almost did it in week 3 as well. I think he almost had the ability to go for like a 60-yard rushing touchdown. He got tripped up once he got to like that 12 to 15 rush range. But still, I think he makes the most sense if you're going to get a little bit unique, a little bit contrarian, taking a shot on one of those cheaper running backs. I'd say only go to him, and that's really it. Unless you're making 150 lineups, then you can start taking shots on guys like RJ Harvey and Braylon Allen. In terms of the wide receivers, Jamar Chase, obviously, it's Jamar Chase, the arguably best wide receiver in the league compared to him and Justin Jefferson. We know what we're going to get from him, probably 10 targets, if not more. I expect him to have a Justin Jefferson type game where Justin Jefferson had a few bad weeks. Really expected to bounce back there against the Steelers, and he did. He went for 10 for 120. Wouldn't be surprised if Jamar Chase does the same here. But he's like 40% owned. He's almost like double the ownership in terms of wide receivers compared to the next highest guy, Tyreek Hill. And he only projects for like one fancy point more. So I think right now, I personally might fade Jamar Chase. I don't feel great about it, but still, in terms of just fantasy point projections, he's almost $2,000 more expensive than the rest of these guys, and he only projects for one fantasy point more. And he's in a tough matchup in Denver. The offensive line and offense has been terrible. I think it's one of those things where it can be viable to fade him on this 2-game slate and still feel good about it. Bo Nix, if we're playing him, we're going to play Courtland Sutton, obviously wide receiver 1 with him. I know in week 2, Troy Franklin was at wide receiver 1. Everyone kind of ran to him for week 3, and they got burned because Courtland Sutton, I mean, he's one of those guys. Bo Nix loves throwing him the ball, going to throw him some deep attempts, red zone attempts. I think it makes sense to pair him with Bo Nix. Tyreek Hill, really love him there. As well as Garrett Wilson. All 3 look great. I think T. Higgins makes for a great contrarian play there off of Jamar Chase if you want to go that route. I really like Jalen Waddle. I'm debating if I go to him over Tyreek Hill. Projected for a few fancy points less. It's just one of those things, like, the most frustrating thing is Jalen Waddle has the ability to be like a top 10 wide receiver in the league. It's just one of those things. He always gets hurt. And Tua just never wants to throw him the ball. There's been so many games where he's been wide open. He should be going for like 20, 25, 30 plus fantasy points. It's just Tua won't throw him the ball, and he'll only lock in on Tyreek. And it's been frustrating because there's been a few showdowns where if the Waddle got like 1 or 2 more catches, I would have won. Like, I would have won a few takedowns, but it just never happens. Never goes that way. Maybe tonight's different. Maybe I fade him. Maybe he goes for 40. Who knows? But I do really like Waddle there as a contrarian option off at Tyreek and kind of a nice, really solid mid-range option. As I mentioned, Troy Franklin had a huge week 2 there. Everyone's like, wide receiver 1, maybe he's taking over for Courtland Sutton. Got absolutely burned there in week 3. I don't think there's a need. Obviously, he's very cheap. You can go out on him if you're obviously playing Bo Nix and you want to stack. It makes sense to go to him and Courtland Sutton. I just think he's a fine play. Especially if Marvin Mims is out, sure, you can get to Troy Franklin. Like, he will get some more looks. Not like Marvin Mims is really pulling too many looks from Bo Nix, but, he has that big playability. 2 guys that if you're playing in multiple lineups, you're going to want to take a shot on, some of them just because of that, stacking ability with Bo Nix. In terms of other kind of value wide receivers, I think Malik Washington's the only other one. Very involved as the wide receiver 3 there for the Dolphins. So if you're playing Tua, it can make sense to go to Malik Washington, or if you're just looking for overall value on the slate, Malik Washington is there. I really want to go to anyone else for this slate. I mean, Allen Lazard doesn't feel great. In terms of the tight ends, it's the grossest section on the slate. As you can see, Evan Ingram is the most expensive tight end on the slate, and he has not been involved. He's been terrible in this offense. Looks brutal. Darren Waller, coming out of retirement, has not played on a snap count, 3,500. Noah Fant is out, so Mike Gesicki is going to be tight end 1 and probably the most expensive, the most owned tight end, the highest ownership tight end on the slate, just because of that. Like, he's in a pass-heavy offense, not a good matchup, but he's been involved as kind of like let's say 1A, 1B tight end with Noah Fant. And now that Noah Fant's out, obviously Gesicki's going to get all of that run. So it makes sense why everyone's flown to him. He's the safest play, has that volume and floor compared to guys like Waller, Ingram, and Taylor. It's just like, if you want to get different, you can fade him. I think I'd rather go to, it feels gross, but I don't mind taking a shot on Evan Ingram, even though he has not been involved. He's been brutal. He's been injured. It's just like, you're going to have to take a shot on these tight ends. I think it's the key to the slate, getting the tight ends right. And as I said, if you want to get super, super different, you can go Mike Gesicki and go to you can double up at tight end. Like, that'd help you get very contrarian because no one's feeling good about the tight ends. It's one of those slates where you can, pretty much play anyone you want. You don't really have to make any sacrifices in terms of like fading multiple of the highest or multiple of the expensive guys because the price is so cheap. So that's why I think double tight end could be extremely valuable to help you get very, very different on the slate, just because they're projecting very, very low ownership, very, very low projecting fantasy point totals. Thus why I think it makes for a great spot to exploit on this 2-game slate. I'm not saying doing it. It's super, super risky, especially with just how bad and how uninvolved these tight ends are. Especially with, Mason Taylor looked good, but it was Tyrod Taylor throwing the ball. Like, as we saw in week 1, wasn't that involved. Obviously, he's gotten a lot more reps and volume and routes run, but still, you just don't feel great playing anyone besides a wide receiver 1 with Justin Fields, but he is there. He'll get some ownership. As I said, Mike Gesicki is the tight end 1. So I think right now, just for the sake of this lineup, I'm going to go with Evan Ingram, but everyone's going to be going to Mike Gesicki. As I said, could be a double tight end slate tonight. And then for defense, I think it makes sense to go to the Broncos. I don't mind taking a shot on the Jets. I mean, we know they have the pieces there on their defense to have a solid game. Like, it could be a buy low spot, just like the Steelers, where they have all the pieces. The defense has been terrible. They finally stepped it up in that game yesterday against the Vikings, where the defense had like 7 or 8 sacks, a couple of takeaways. Like, that could be tonight's game against the Dolphins. We know Tua is very turnover prone, so I don't mind taking a shot there on the Jets. But as I said, one of those slates where you can pretty much pay up for anyone, every single person. It's just like how you want to get different. Like, do you want to go to Jamar Chase? Or excuse me, do you want to go to Chase Brown and the Bengals offense there? Like, do you want to get different, go to Jalen Waddle? Or do you want to get different going to some, double tight end? Like, that's kind of the overall question marks on the slate, is what's going to, happen there. So hope you guys like the breakdown. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.